Right, let's stay in Cape Town, and the Cape Town-based market research and business insights firm, Yazi, has revealed how load shedding has impacted South Africa's informal market, its traders, their homes and businesses. Over 40% of residents indicated that their loss of income as a result of load shedding ranged between 1,000 to 5,000 rand per month. Let's get more detail now on how load shedding has been impacting the township economy, and we're joined by Township Entrepreneur and Alliance founder Bulelani Balabala. Mr. Balabala, thank you very much for your time. We are seeing the breakdown of the numbers there in that introduction, as we have mentioned to you. So people losing between 1,000 to 5,000 rand per month. Let's drill deeper. Just how dire is the situation for township entrepreneurs?
Hi, Toli. Thank you so much for having me on, and I think the opportunity to just chat with you. Those numbers, I think as I heard those numbers, the numbers I find them to be a bit conservative, right? I think considering some of the entrepreneurs and work that we do, right? I mean, quite recently, we were doing work out in the Northern Cape in a township called Khalishewe. And I mean, I spent, I think, over 2-3 days there with some of the township entrepreneurs pertaining to, a program we're going to be hosting and running there. And I think, that one of the entrepreneurs are stating that, the impact of not having electricity and not also being able to afford getting alternative power means like your generators and keeping them running, it was costing them over 500 rand a day just to keep a generator running in those hours where they didn't have power. And then I think over and above that, losing anything between 5,000 to about 8,000 rand a month, because I think that lost opportunity there is with that particular market is, if you're unable to produce a service, if you're unable to deliver, then the market is not as lenient on you as a small business. And I think most importantly, as a township-based business, right? Mm-hmm. So the long-term ramifications, even with power being sorted out in the long term, still leaves a bad taste in the mouth of small business owners that are operating within the township nationwide.
Yeah. Let's talk practical solutions, Mr. Balabala. I remember a time in the township when government was actively promoting solar heated geysers. Could that be an avenue for entrepreneurs to explore, or will they need the assistance of government to try and put solar panels in their businesses, because buying diesel has become very expensive? And I suspect you're going to talk about the money issue, and that's where the small business department comes in. Have they approached that ministry for help?
Yeah, no. I think it goes without saying, right? I mean, one of the primary responsibilities of government, and I think in this particular case, the custodian would be Department of Small Business Development, is to create an enabling environment for entrepreneurs to thrive. And I think in this particular case, one of the low-hanging fruits, I think, in as far as renewable power or alternative power means that one can tap into is solar. But, the cost of solar, sort of throws the average individual out the ballpark. I mean, a basic UPS, which might not necessarily work. It might work if you're running a service-based business. It might not necessarily work if you're selling amakota or if you're changing tires and the sort, right? So then you potentially need a good sort of backup system with a right sort of inverter with battery packs, or if not, a full-on solar packs, which is why if you get a Department of Small Business Development, and I think for me there's a three-part opportunity here. There's an opportunity if they plug in to subsidize, not pay it off entirely, but to subsidize small businesses that are heavily impacted by this looting, even if it's putting up 4 panels with 1 inverter and 2 not even lithium batteries, but gel-based batteries, right, to sort of keep them going. And you subsidize that cost, but you then utilize small businesses that are in the township or across the board nationwide to become the supplier, the distributors of these products. Number one, you then create you create an opportunity where these same small businesses that are distributors for these products that might be produced or manufactured in other parts of the world, or even South Africa by a stretch, right? You create an amazing opportunity for aftermarket sales for these individuals. So that for me becomes a great opportunity. I mean, similar to what you're mentioning now with the geezers, when I go to my home at Mbisa, we still have the geezers sitting up there still working. So I think for me, those are some of the things that we could potentially look at in terms of supporting these entrepreneurs. And I think also on the second part, wherever government has got facilities that are available. These facilities could be hubs of economic development in certain parts of the country. You have them, Ekurhuleni have them, Khalishiwe has them in the Northern Cape, as well as KZN and other parts of the country. Electrify those units so that entrepreneurs are able to find spaces where if I don't have machinery and equipment and I'm able to plug out and plug into a place that has alternative power, then put solar and alternative power in those spaces and open up support for those individuals.
Yeah. Perhaps as we wind down our conversation, oftentimes there is a lot of complaints coming from people who run businesses in the township to say that simply because their businesses are not formalized, they are neglected by government. It's as if they don't matter to government. And yet we are told that small businesses are the biggest creators of employment for people who need immediate employment. If the township economy were recognized by government and was really seen as an important sector which creates employment, would that change the situation for those who run these businesses? And while you think about that response, what is going on? Because in Gauteng, for example, and I'm glad you pick up on townships like Tembisa, we know that in this province there has been a ministry or a department that has been, or that's made it its job to revitalize the township economies. Is that mere talk by politicians and there really is nothing moving on the ground, or are we talking out of ignorance here?
So I'll tell you one, right? I think with the Gauteng, you see very little movement, right? And I think for me, that very little movement is coming from government government, provincial government, municipalities, the LED offices. Them and in and of themselves are not implementers. And I think the big disconnect comes when you're plugging into implementation partners that are not adequate or don't understand the lay and do not know how to roll out implementation plans and programs. Then you pick up a disparity. Then solutions don't get to where they need to go. And communications and information around opportunities available don't even go as far as getting to the entrepreneurs and themselves. And those are some of the big challenges that you come across, because when you're engaging the HODs of these various departments, economic development departments, you find that they've got some of them have got great programs, but the programs are not getting to where they need to go. And the big disconnect there is you're not plugging into the entrepreneurial community that is there. And I sort of want to then latch that sort of response into the question that you'd asked, right? Around, government, upon small business, adequately supporting these township-based businesses. I think number one, it starts with a conversation around formalizing and not formalizing. Number one, it starts with putting your hand at the pulse of what's going on. It starts with understanding. Are you willing to understand? Because the big driver, and I've heard a number of ministers, occupying this particular office talking about small businesses must formalize, they must formalize, they must formalize. But when you say that under the backdrop of, ordinarily when you start formalizing your business, whether you've got clients or not, you already have over 10,000 Rand a year that you are liable for through annual returns, whether you're making money or not, through filing, with CIPC, and all the stuff. And if you've got Quader, to filing with Quader and other industry related bodies that you've signed up with. Rather, the conversation that we then need to then have is to say, how are these informal businesses able to produce 40,000 rand all the way up to 500,000 rand a month, and they're still not registered, right? What do we then need to do in terms of creating an enabling environment for these small businesses to thrive? Because they are a main driver for employment. I mean, one of the stats that was put out by Stats, this was, I think, in 2019, there were about 1.8 million informal businesses. Over 680,000 of those were formal in the sense that they were registered with CIPC. But when you sort of then truncate down to saying, if you've got 1.8 million of these so-called informal businesses, what are you doing in between to create a buffer that then supports these businesses in the immediate? Because the moment you incentivize a small business owner, then you then create an enabling environment for them to say, there's actual benefits in me formalizing my business as opposed to it being a risk to whatever little income I'm already making, because I won't get market access opportunities anyway.
Yeah. Perhaps as a final question to you, how would you describe the township economy or township environment at the moment as it relates to safety? Because we're going into the festive season now, and you're going to have a lot of visitors who want to explore because they are off work, and that means real money into the pockets of the entrepreneurs there. But for them to visit without worrying about constantly looking over their shoulder, how safe is it to conduct business from the township?
You know, I'll tell you, it's a very difficult question to answer because, you know, a part of me wants to answer this question honestly, without jeopardizing, you know, the potential customers that come in. And a part of me wants to just advocate for people to come out. I think the big thing for me, Toli, is to say, you know, if you're going into the township, you know, if you're going anywhere in the country, rather, right, be as cautious as possible, right, of your surroundings, the people that are there with you. Try and have someone who's going to accompany you as you go out. But I think the big thing for me is communities where these small businesses operate. My big advocacy is, you know, let's protect these small businesses because, you know, as the socioeconomic impact of the lockdown, the looting, and a number of factors, right, as we've seen a rise in crime across the board. And I think we've seen a rise in crime, crimes being reported by a number of the small businesses that we work with. But I think for me, it goes to, you know, the local police stations, you know, them being able to then support these businesses. And we understand the conversation around there are not enough policing, there are not enough police vans. But for me, I'd say, you know, go out into the township and support. Don't go out alone. Be very cautious, be very vigilant, but support as much as you can. And in certain instances where you can purchase the product online where it is possible for you to do that, then do that. But make sure that we direct the money where it needs to go.
Yeah, Bulelani Balabala, let me thank you very much for giving us the lay of the land as it regards the township economy. We've heard much about that, the revitalization of that sector.